Sorry, I don't know what happened there, but we seem to have gotten disconnected for a minute or two. My apologies. Don't know why, but I hope we're all back. Okay. Um, so let me get back to Lightroom here. Okay, can you guys see Lightroom again? I hope.
Yes.
Yeah, we can. Great, thank you. So I want to select these images that have cobwebs in them. I might not want every single one. And so to select individual images, I click on one, and then if I want another one, I'm going to hold down the Command key, which I believe is the Control key for PCs. And so I've skipped this one in the middle, but then if I decide I want that, I can click on that too, holding down the Command key. If I know that I want this first image and then all of them through to another image with everything in between, I don't have to click on each one individually. I can hold down the Shift key and then click on the last image I want to select, and now all 5 of those images are selected all at once. And I can see I have 2 other images that I want to add to that grouping. So I again click on the Command key and include those images. And now I'm going to make a collection. So I go back to the left-hand panel, down to where it says Collections. And I already have a couple of collections, but that's okay. I'm going to go to the plus sign at Collections, and it says Create Collection or Create Smart Collection. So first I'm just going to create a collection. And when I do that, this Create Collection window comes up, and I can name it. I can just say Collection, but maybe I'll say Cobwebs. I can place it into a different collection set if I have one. I don't have one yet. And I have the option of including the images that are already selected. So I will do that. If I don't have any selected yet, that's fine. I can select them later and then just drag and drop them into that collection. But anyway, I have included the selected photos. It says under that, make new virtual copies. I can do that as well. So you can make a virtual copy, which is just like another, well, it's a copy essentially, but it means that it hasn't physically been reproduced or copied into where the images actually are. It's just, again, an instruction that's been written. So I don't need that right now, so I'll hit Create. And now, if we go back to where it says Collections, under Collections, I have this new collection that says Cobwebs, which is great. So instead of going through maybe an enormous catalog of images just to find those images with cobwebs, I've made this collection, and anytime I want to access them, I can put them in. If I make new images that are cobwebs that I want to go into that collection, I can add them. I can also go in and rename these images to say cobwebs. So I can keywords. So let's say cobwebs. And now, presumably, that word has become attached to these images. And I can do that individually as well. So I don't have to assign keywords when I import the images. And that is a good thing, actually, because many times you'll be importing a group of images that are not all from exactly the same thing. And so if you say, Monterey, and some of them were actually taken in Santa Cruz or San Francisco, whatever you designate as the keyword will become assigned to that image. So even if it wasn't made in Monterey, if you assigned that keyword when you were importing, that's what it will have. So you can go in after the fact and add keywords to individual images as you like, or to smaller groupings. So I've made this collection. That's great. I can also make collections based on certain attributes immediately. So if I go to the collections section again and click on, oh, by the way, if you want to delete one, you don't hit the delete key necessarily. Oops. You can go in and use this minus key, minus clicker, and that will delete the entire collection if you want to do so. But I don't want to do that. I want to add a collection. And the next choice is create smart collection. And so in smart collections, you can designate certain attributes of images as rules, and then any image that meets those rules, that rule or those rules that you've assigned to the collection, any image that does will be put into this smart collection. It still stays in the catalog. That's where all of your images are. But now they are also included in a sub-listing. Okay. Now I haven't applied any of these designations to my images. So let me get out of there for a moment and let's talk about what you can do to assign things to your images. So if you look down below the grid view of the images, you'll see that there are these flags, a white one and then a black one with an X. So if you go through these images and say, oh, you know, this one, it doesn't do it for me. I don't think I want it, but I'm not sure, so I'm going to, oops, I didn't want to assign that to everyone. So you have to unselect all of them and just select one image. And now, let's say I'm pretty sure I don't want this, but I'm not going to delete it yet. I'm just going to give it a black flag to indicate that I may not want to keep this one. And that's not permanent. I can undo that at any time. There are also stars and colors. Generally, people use the stars to assign a value to the image. So, like, I think this image here is just the greatest in the world. I love that I captured this little dandelion thingy or flower seed. So I'm going to give that 5 stars. So I just click on the 5th star and I've assigned it 5 stars, and now you can see these 5 stars that are illuminated. And then I like this one. Maybe I don't like it quite as much. Oh, look at that. It's not quite in focus. Oh, that's not good. Except for right up here. Well, maybe I have some reason for keeping it, but I don't think it's as good. Maybe I'll just give it 2 stars. And then this one, that's pretty cool. It comes in closer. I like that. Maybe I don't like it quite as much as that one with 5 stars, so maybe I'll give that one 4 stars, and so on. All right. And then the colors. People tend to use the color assignments more for categories rather than a value judgment or assignment. So you can use the best images, you know, are red, and the worst, I don't know, purple or whatever. I tend to use red for the ones I like that I am using for a specific purpose, and those are the best ones for it. I tend to use green for images for school, for example. But these are my own personal designations, and you can designate them as you want. But let's say I think that I want to assign this first one with the 5 stars also with red. And maybe this one with 2 stars with green. And then this one also red. And this one red as well, let's say. And maybe I'll give this one 4 stars also. So now when I want to make a smart collection, I can include some or all of those designations and words as well. So if we go down here to where it says match blank, any, all, or none of the following rules, I can then designate what those rules are. So the rating refers to stars. So let's say I want only 5-star images, and that's all that will come up. And there's only one 5-star image. Okay. And let's say I think, okay, I messed that up. Let me just get rid of that smart collection and come back and make another one. So I want my ratings to be, let's say, 3 stars or greater, and I can designate greater is less than or equal to, is less than, is greater than, is or is not, or my choice. Okay. But I want greater than or equal to 3 stars. And then I come to the right where there's this plus sign and I click on it. Oh, sorry. So this is one rule. If I want to apply another one, I click on the plus sign. And now I can make another designation. So let's say, since I haven't done anything else, I pick a label color. And now I can choose that color. And since I assigned mostly red, we'll do red. And click on create. And now the images that meet those 2 criteria in terms of the stars and the colors have come up here. So this image with 5 stars is red, and then another with 4 stars is red. So I said 3 stars or greater. That's what I've got here. And then red. So these 2 images meet those rules. And so they are now, they now show up in this smart collection I made that I didn't give a name to, but I can if I want to. And you can do this with any designations that you want. So I can rename it. I can put it inside a collection set that I've made, smart collections or what have you. I can do a file name or a file type, dates, any of this information that is either automatically embedded in the file type or ones that I've added, like a file name, maybe I've changed or something of that sort. Okay. So smart collections and smart collections are really useful to make, to organize images. So you don't have to go through the entire catalog, every single time you want to work on images or a grouping of images. Okay, so any questions on that? Good. Get rid of this here. Oops. Sorry. How did I do that? Sorry. I don't know how I managed that, but okay. Okay, can you see Lightroom again? Yeah, okay. On the right-hand side, we have other information. So again, I'm in the grid view here. Actually, let me do this first. So I'm in the grid view where we see all of the images. If I want to look at a particular image, I can just double click on it and up it comes. This is called the loop view. And a loop is a little magnifier that we photographers used to use to look at individual slides and negatives when we worked with film. Most people don't work with film anymore, but the name remains. Excuse me. So the grid view shows you all of the images in a particular grouping, and the loop view shows you one. If you look just below the image, there's this grid. That's the grid view. If you prefer keystrokes, it's the letter G. And next to that is one rectangle. That's the loop view. And of course, it's not the letter L, the letter E for loop view. Beside that, where it says XY, is the compare view. So you can select two images to compare to each other. So let's say I want this image, and then again, I'll hold the command key down, and now click on XY, and these two images come up side by side. And the information about them also comes up. Sorry. And I can compare these images. I can, the first one on the left says select, so that's my first choice. And then the one on the right says candidate. And I can change that by using the arrow keys on my keyboard. So in the order in which the images are organized in the grid view, if I use the arrow key, this will select subsequent images. The right key will. The left key, of course, images before that. And then I can go back to this one. Okay. To get out of that, I can click on the XY again. These images are still selected, however, so I want to remember that. And if I don't want to continue to have them selected, I'll unselect them or deselect them. If I want to compare more than two images together, so let's say these bracketing images, then I can go to what's called the survey view, and that's just to the right of the XY. If you want to access it with a letter, it's the letter N as in Nancy. But now these four images that I happen to select show up. And I can look at them together. If I decide I don't want one of them in here, you can see as I run the cursor over the images, an X appears in the lower right-hand corner. Also, I can rate the images from here with stars and or with flags. So let's say, I kind of like this one on the upper right. I think that in terms of exposure overall, that's the best one. Maybe I'll give it 4 stars. Okay. And then right below that, this image that's really dark, I know I don't want to use that one for working on. It's just too dark. So even in my survey view, I'll just click X and it gets rid of that out of the survey view. That doesn't mean I've gotten rid of the image, period. It's just out of this view, these images I have selected. And so I can get rid of that. I can add more if I want. And then to get out of this, I can click on the button again. And again, these images are still selected. So I might want to deselect them and go to a different image. You can see I was looking at close-ups here. So, maybe I like this image. So again, when I double click on an image, when we're in the grid view, if I double click on it, I I get the individual image. If I want to close it up, I click on it once. So notice that the cursor has a plus sign in it. And so when I click once on the image, it comes in closer for close-up view. I can set how close that view is. So if we go to the left and look at the navigator again, and this image, you can see the area that is selected, which is, I find, very handy. And you can use the cursor and either the mouse or the click pad to move it around and select a different area. By the way, you can see, I think, that the depth of field here is really, really, really shallow. So we talked about depth of field. So only this area that I focused on, right here and here, is in true focus. Even this flower here in the center is a little bit out of focus, and the background is so out of focus you can't really tell what's there. But anyway, I clicked on it once to come in close, and I can click on it again to go back to the full frame. If I click on it twice, it goes back to the grid view. So if we go back to the navigator, to the right of where it says navigator, it says fit, fill, 1-to-1, and then here it says 4-to-1. So fit is full frame, fill is a little bit less, 1-to-1 is a crop here, and then here where it says 4-to-1, I actually have lots of choices as to the magnification or demagnification that I want. So 2-to-1 comes in even closer. Oops. Four to one, even closer, right? Oh, look at how sharp that is. Isn't that gorgeous? Anyway, so actually it could be sharper. Anyway, so I can come in really close. I can come in even closer. And now you're starting to see the pixels that make up the actual image, right? And 11-to-1 is the closest you can come in. And now you can't really see what it is we're looking at. Well, not very well, anyway. If you didn't know what we were looking at, you wouldn't know, right? Generally, we're not going to come in and work this closely, though sometimes, you might. But that's an extreme magnification. So let's go back to 1-to-1 right here. And then I can also do less magnification. So 1-to-2, 1-to-3 or 4. So it's not full frame. 1-to-16 is like demagnification, essentially. So 1-to-2 often is pretty useful for working on specific areas of the frame. But anyway, you can change the magnification if you want to. So back to fit, and then to get back again to the grid view, you can click on the letter G, or click on this grid icon, or just double click on the individual image and it goes back to the grid view. Okay. The information that comes up is very useful, and I want to talk about that for a moment. So the letter I on the keyboard brings up that information, and you can toggle through it. There are 2 pages of information, like so. And I want us to designate what shows up. And in order to do that, we're going to go to the pull-down menu at the top and all the way to the right where it says View. So the third word from the right, View, and go down to where it says View Options, or Command J. And this Library View Options window comes up. And you have two choices, the grid view and the loop view. So in the grid view, which is to the left, that is the information when you're looking at the entire grid of images. And this one's important. You want where it shows show grid extras to be set to expanded cells, not compact cells, but expanded cells. And in this way, you can show other information. The rest of these, for the most part, are default settings. Okay. Until you get down to expanded cell extras. And then you want this to be checked where it says show header with labels. And then you have these choices as to what information will be shown about the images. And I generally choose common photo settings first, because common photo settings includes the exposure and the ISO, the lens setting, the ISO, and so the exposure, ISO, I think so that's the shutter speed and the aperture, and also the ISO, okay. So, sorry, common photo settings. Exposure program tells you if it was in aperture, shutter, priority, or which mode. Copy name or file base name is useful to have. File extension is fine, or ratings you can put in, any number, it's up to you, really, what information you want to see about the image. So maybe exposure bias, which means if you purposely over or underexpose the image. But these things will show up in the grid. Next, go back to the top, and from grid view, you'll go to loop view. And loop view is what you see with the individual image. And so show info overlay. Let me see something here. Yeah. And and in this case, you have two views, so you can toggle through to get from 1 to 2 to actually, I'm going to turn that off for now. And you can set all of these choices. So for the first loop view, I put in the name, and then when it was made, and then common photo settings. So again, the aperture, the shutter speed, the ISO, and so on. In the second loop view, I put in the exposure bias, which means if I did a plus or minus exposure, the program I used, aperture priority, shutter priority, what have you. And then again, common photo settings, because to me, it doesn't matter that much. But maybe there's some reason I always want to know which particular camera and lens I used every time. Okay. So I've now set these, and now when I click the I key, this information comes up, the name, the date and time the image was made, and then these are the common settings: the shutter speed, the aperture, the ISO rating, and the focal length of the lens, and it includes the particular lens that I used, which was an 18 to 140 millimeter lens. If I click on the eye again, this second page of information comes up. So I did a minus 2/3 EV for exposure value. So I told the camera that I wanted it to underexpose by 2/3 of a stop for every image. Normally you'll have that set to 0, but I decided to do that for this image. And then I shot it in the aperture priority mode, and I selected in the in my choices to know the camera I used and the lens. So that's what's showing here. So when I set those the options, that's what I'm setting right now, the view options. Okay. And then if I don't want to see any of that, I click on the I, letter I again, and they all go away. Okay. And I may not want to see them all the time, you know, but sometimes I do. So, sorry. Oh, I did another set of bracketing here. So when I have an image selected, if I look to the right in this other panel, then I see information about the specific image. The first thing at the top is called a histogram, this graph, and it shows us the distribution of colors and of areas of light and dark. So all the way to the left is dark, or shadows and then black. And then as we go across from left to right, it gets lighter and lighter, finally having highlights and then whites all the way to the right. And then it also shows the distribution of colors in those areas. So maybe I should find an image that has more of a range of everything. This one will probably be green, and of course yellows and reds, which are incorporated in that. Blues, because it's in shadow, which we'll talk about a little later on. These are bracketing images, so you can see this overexposed image. Everything, all the information is all the way to the right. It's all white, essentially, with little bits of color. Let's find an image that has maybe some more actual different colors, maybe. No, let's try that one. It has a lot of red and pink. So this one doesn't have very many true blacks, nor does it have very many true whites, but it has quite a range in between and a distribution of colors, though what we see are mainly these pinks and reds. There's blue here in the darker areas because we can see in the background there's some blue and so on. So the histogram, again, shows the distribution of light and dark and of colors. Below that, you can see the ISO rating, for that particular image, the focal length of the lens, the aperture, and the shutter speed. Okay. You can also, after you look at the histogram, see that let me close all of these up, a quick develop area. So you can work on your image, instead of going into the develop module, you can do some quick and dirty resettings of the image here in terms of exposure, white balance, that is color shifts, and so on. I don't want you to do that. I want you to work on the images in the develop module. Okay, but you can do that here. So that's quick develop. And then keywording. Here is where you can add keywords to specific images if you want to. And keyword list. So as you add words to your images, as you continue to import images in, more and more words will show up in your keyword list, so you don't have to type them in each time. They will all be there. You can make selections if you're using those same words. And then finally, metadata. And so the metadata is the information about that image. And this information is embedded in every file type unless you actively remove it, which you can do. I don't advise it, but you can do that, and you can change it. So if you look at the syllabus, I state that I want you to submit images that have been made for this term, for this class, and therefore not previous to June 29th. And you may think to yourself, how is CETA going to know if I made these images before? Well, this is how I'll know, by looking at the metadata. Because in the metadata, I can see when it was made, the time, the date, the time, you know. If the GPS was on, then I can tell where it was made, you know, down to the latitude and longitude if I wanted to know that. Um, but all of that information is embedded into the file. So here, where it says metadata, to the left of that, you have choices. There's a pull-down menu. And the amount of information that is shown, it's not that it disappears, but that is shown in Lightroom will change as you change these settings. I set mine to EXIF and IPTC because that shows the most amount of information. And you can do default, and you can see a lot of that information disappeared. So that's what I set it to. It's up to you, really, what you have that set to. So now I can see the file name, the original file name, and so notice that this says NEF instead of DNG. So I shoot in RAW, and the RAW files are actually file types that are specific to the type of camera you're using. So Nikons make what are called NEF files. Canons make CR2. And so they are like proprietary file types for, or raw file types for the specific camera manufacturers. When I import the images into Lightroom, I have a choice. I can import them as they are, or I can have them converted to a universal digital negative file, which is a universal raw file type. And those supposedly are somewhat more easily read. They're more easily read by, you know, cross-platform. And they supposedly are somewhat more durable in terms of the file type. So you have a choice when you import your images into Lightroom, if you're shooting in RAW, as to how you want them imported. And so I import them, having them converted to the digital negative file type or format, which is .dng. So that's why there are two different names. It then tells me what folder these images are in, the file size, so 38.85 megabytes, what type of file it is, the metadata status up to date, the metadata date, and so why does it say the 9th? I don't know. I think I must have worked on it a little on that date, so that's the last time I worked on it. If I had rated it, the ratings would be here. And then the EXIF information is the specific information about the image and how it was shot. So these are the dimensions in terms of pixels, I believe. Oops. That's not what I wanted to do. Sorry. I did not want to go to the develop module. My apologies. Go back. Okay, so the dimensions, the exposure, again, what the shutter speed and aperture were set to. Exposure bias, so I did a -1. If I had kept the EV or the plus minus sign at 0, it would say 0. The flash did not fire. The exposure program was set to aperture priority, so I chose the aperture, and the camera set the shutter speed. Metering mode, center weighted average, should not be there. It should actually be on matrix. A very high ISO at 12,800, and I have no memory as to why I had it that high. Maybe it was actually twilight. No, it was 2 in the afternoon. I must have been experimenting. The focal length of the lens, the equivalent focal length if this were a full frame sensor, the actual lens I used, the date I shot this, the date and time, the make of the camera, the model, the serial number, any comments I've added, my metadata, so the information I put in when I set, the metadata in the import area. So it says copyrighted and so on. So all of that information is here about each image. Okay. So that is the library module. Again, this is where we import images into the catalog. This is where we sort them, we organize them, and decide which images we want to work on. And we then will take them, or we'll go to the develop module, which is the next one up here to the right, and work on specific images. We can also select a bunch of images and work on them at the same time. Generally, you'd want to do that if there are certain things that you want to adjust that are all the same for each image, or if the images are very similar. So we're about out of time. We are out of time. But I can choose an image to work on, or let's say the same image. And if I go up here in the upper center right where it says library, I'll go one to the right of that where it says develop. And now I am in the develop module. And this is where I'll be working on my images. So the basic organization is the same as that in the library module, but the two panels have different information on either side. You still have the two panels, but now they are specific to the develop module. And each module, library, develop, map, book, etc., each module has its own set of instructions, essentially, and controls available. So we'll talk about the develop module next time. And since I went on and on and on, we will also look at your assignment, the ISO bracketing and equivalent exposure assignment on Tuesday. Okay. So any questions on Lightroom, on anything else? Questions?
I actually have one.
Yeah.
So you were showing us how to view the information on each photos. I'm only able to see information for certain photos and not all of them for some reason. For
So
mine, yeah.
are you in the loop view or the grid view?
Grid view? I'm in grid view, yeah.
Okay. So with the grid view, let me get over here. And I should open all of these, I guess, metadata. If you have an image selected, then information about that image is what will show. So you won't actually show information, I don't think, about every single image. Let me see if I select them all, what comes up here. There's still one, I guess, that must have some dominance. But now, because I've selected all of these images under metadata, do you see it says mixed over and over and over again? Yeah. That's because there's no one specific setting, except apparently I did, nobody, these are my images and I guess a couple of assignments. Nobody had the flash on, so it says did not fire. Okay. If some images had the flash and others not, then it too would say mixed. Okay.
Oh, okay.
But it's only when I select one image. Come on. Hang on. So when I select one image that I get the specific image, but you won't have, for example, if I select two images, then it will only show the things that they have in common.
Yeah. The thing with mine is that in simple grid view, like for all the photos, how on yours it has the information for like the aperture and stuff, and
Mhm.
mine doesn't show it for mine. Like it only shows like out of the like what 10 photos that I have, it only
Mhm.
shows information for like 3 of them at the top of the photos.
So did
That makes
so if you again go into the view pull down menu,
Yeah.
go to view options, and you set this.
Yeah, I did. I was doing it along with you. And only like 4 of them are showing information, like
I, you,
basic information.
hmm, that's odd.
Unless I like try restarting Lightroom and see if it
You can try.
works.
It should show up immediately though. I
Yeah.
wonder if maybe you had those selected when.
You have to have them selected
No, no.
when.
I was wondering if they were.
Oh,
Maybe it just affected it for those images, though it
yeah.
really it shouldn't. Um, Go ahead and yeah, I would go ahead and try redoing that.
Yeah.
So let me see if yeah, that even when I just have one selected, it affects everything. So I'm not
Yeah.
sure why yours is doing that.
I'm pretty sure I just need to restart it, probably.
Huh. I will research this, however, to see why, because really it should show up for everything. Because I
Yeah.
can see that uh, even when I have one image selected and I go into the view options, and when I here, let me move this over. When I change this in the grid view from expanded to compact cells, all that information disappears for everything, not just the selected image.
Yeah.
So it should,
Let me see.
whatever you're doing, it should do it for everything. Now, one thing you might want to check is to see that these things are actually checked. You know, show header, all these blue check
Yeah,
marks.
they are.
Make sure that they are. They are.
They are. So that I
That's a
know.
problem of not having a class room where I can just walk over to your
I
computer
know.
and and check it out.
Yeah.
Um,
I'll probably look it up online. I'm pretty sure I'll find something there. If not, then
Let me know. Let me
yeah, I'll
know
let
if
you
you
know.
figure it out because I will. I'll look into it as well. Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions, comments, issues? No. Okay. Well, in that case, I hope to see you all and maybe a few more even on Tuesday. Have a wonderful, safe weekend. Make lots of images. If you have any questions, of course, email me and I'll do my best to get back to you as soon as possible. If you do need to meet as a Zoom meeting, I can try, on an individual basis. I'll certainly try and do that if you need to. Again, my office hours are Wednesdays from 12:30 to 2:30, and the Zoom invitation for that is available on Canvas as well as, of course, the the class invitation. Please do watch the videos, those instructional videos that are available, and of course read the notes in the modules and look at the class notes. Okay. Uh, so to be continued. Have a have a nice weekend and stay safe and healthy, everybody. Really.